As this year comes to close, a lot of leaders feel the pressure to reflect, reset, and rush into what's next. But resilient leaders don't prepare for the new season by moving faster. They prepare by getting steadier. Hi, my name is Tammy Imlay. I'm an executive leadership strategist and advisor, and I guide senior leaders and executive teams through clarity, identity, and alignment so they can make confident decisions, lead well under pressure, and build teams that actually hold together when things get hard. So over the last few episodes, we've really been talking about what it means to be a resilient leader and not just what resiliency looks like in theory, but how to make it practical and what it looks like in leadership specifically. So today I wanted to bring it all together, and I wanted to talk about 3 things every resilient leader does before stepping into a new season. Not to hype themselves up, but to lead with clarity, intention, and resolve. Before we dive in, let's talk about the last 4 episodes in this Resilient Leader series. Because if you haven't listened to those, please go back and listen, because they kind of build on each other and they set the foundation for this next season that we're stepping into. And I called it a next season because, I could say this is the last episode of 2025. However, this is for any season. Anytime you're starting something new, you want to do it with intentionality. And if you're building a leadership team, and you want it to be resilient, if you're building this ideal team, then these episodes that we've had help you build that foundation, help you have a great start. If you already have a team and you want to become more resilient, these are the action steps that you should take. And so the first episode was the pop quiz no one studied for. So we started by naming the moment leadership stops being theoretical and gets exposed. In the pressure or a crisis, people don't follow a plan. They follow the leader's nervous system. They follow your lead, not necessarily it's how you lead more than even what you say or what you do. The next episode was Resilience is Built on a Tuesday. This is one of my favorite episodes because being military, we trained before the fight. So there are things that I trained for that I never actually saw. But the thing is that if we did see those circumstances or those trials, we knew exactly what to do. So we talked about how resilient leadership isn't formed in the trauma, but in the ordinary days before it. It's the habits you practice when nothing is wrong, and that's going to determine how you lead when everything is. So it's the habits that you build now and on a Tuesday, that way when something happens, you can go into action mode and you don't really even have to think about it. You know instinctively what to do. This next one I feel is so important in this season, in this culture that we have right now. It's compassion without compromise. We explore why resilient leadership holds both care and standards at the same time. True compassion doesn't lower expectations. We are in this season, we're in this culture of, be kind over everything. And some of the leaders that I worked with, they felt like they were lowering their standards and their expectations in order to be kind. And I think that it's important that you hold both, that you are compassionate for the person in front of you, but you hold them to the standard and the expectations that is the level that you're working at or the level that you expect. It provides clarity, dignity, and accountability that people want to do well. And if they don't, maybe they're not the right team member for this team. So you can hold both compassion and expectations. And the 4th episode was the leader sets the weather. So most recently, we talked about how our presence and our emotional regulation. Leaders don't control the storm, but they absolutely set the climate their teams operate in. And how you show up. If you are always anxious, don't be surprised if your team is anxious. If things happen, if a crisis happens, the way you show up is going to dictate how your team responds. And so again, on a Tuesday, this is when you consider this and you think, how do I want to show up? What do I want to say? How do I want to handle this? And so these 4 episodes really lay the foundation. And so today, I want to talk about 3 things that every resilient leader does before entering a new season. And when I talk about these are things, you can do them you get to define the season. So right now we're closing out 2025 and we're stepping boldly into 2026. However, this could be you are closing out a big initiative, or you reached a big goal, or a goal shifted, or you have a new team, or, there's so many options. So I want you to define season in a different way here. You get to define the season, and don't limit yourself. It's just when you're starting something new, it could be that you are stepping up into a new identity. It could be you're deciding how to show up in this new season as well. It may not be a physical season of change. It could just be a resolve season in your heart, and something that that you're ready for the next. So the number one thing that resilient leaders do, and these are not in any particular order, but all three of them are important. So don't just take one of them. But resilient leaders take inventory before they take action. What does this mean? It means they pause long enough to notice what they're carrying, what worked, and what quietly drained them. Not everything needs to be fixed or carried forward. Awareness can prevent repeating the same patterns. And so by taking inventory and by slowing down for a moment to say, okay, what went well? How much am I carrying? Did you lose a team member in the last, since you started this season? And are you going to be a man down for the next season? Do you have more people? And so you need to spread the responsibilities more. And what quietly drained you? This reflection is strategic, not indulgent. It's important that we do this if we understand what we're carrying, what worked, and what drained us. Then we're able to set the tone and set the right attitude and, just decide what we want the next season to look like. And so what this does, and I like the whole nervous system, the why behind things. This ties into our nervous system. It ties into the understanding, and like we talked about in the other episodes, regulation before direction. Check in with yourself. I know I am picturing some of my clients right now being like, Tammy, they don't like the reflection part, but they also know that it's one of the best things that they've done. And so before planning the next season, you get to name what you're bringing into it, what you're carrying currently. And this could be don't limit yourself here in just work. Because if you're having a heavy season at home or personal or, some other area of your life, good or bad, this could be positive or negative. If you're carrying this weight, it needs to have a consideration in this next season. If it's personal, then maybe you need to have more time built in before work and after work to set things down and pick things up. It just allows you, by taking the inventory, it allows you to plan better. Okay, this one right here, this comes after number one, but resilient leaders decide what will not come with them. Resilient leaders decide what will not come with them. What this means is resilient leaders intentionally release outdated expectations, unnecessary urgency. Being military, being a single parent, I had this sense of urgency, and we were taught sense of urgency for everything. But the thing is, not everything needs to have an urgency attached to it. And so by understanding that and deciding, okay, in this season, I don't need urgency surrounded by XYZ, or I am going to intentionally slow down because when we act urgently, things fall. So that's what I mean, unnecessary urgency. Don't add urgency that doesn't need to be there. And then let's talk about the roles that you've outgrown. This one has been big for me this year. And I'm looking at old identities that I've carried throughout the years. I've done a lot of things in my life, from being in the Air Force, being a therapist, working with a nonprofit, now, coaching and moving more into advisory. I have a lot of things these roles that I've outgrown. And I was thinking about my cabinets, my drawers, my file cabinets. and all of my therapy books and tools and resources that I've carried. And the thing is I realized that it's time for me to release that. Those are not going to come with me into the next season. I'm not going back to be a therapist. And by holding on to that, it gives me that like 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. And so what roles have you outgrown? Now, for me, it's a physical purge. I'm getting rid of those. That's like the last hold that has my old identities. I have some craft supplies that I don't use. And I used to love sitting and doing crafts, and I still love them. But if I was to do that today, I would do a different type of craft. And so it's a different identity, different role that I've outgrown, and purging that. And again, sometimes it is more emotional or more intangible, but you can set them down, decide what you're not going to take with you. And then also the pressure that no longer serves the mission. So here you are, look at what old expectations don't belong anymore. The unnecessary urgency. There are some goals that need urgency. And I do believe in working with a sense of purpose, but does it need to be urgent? The roles you've outgrown, and then that pressure that no longer serves the mission. A lot of people do work well under pressure, but what kind of pressure is it? Is it one that you just have to feel like it's all on your shoulders? Does that serve you? So carrying everything forward is going to weaken your clarity. And so as you are looking at things that you can intentionally release, think about that. The clarity is the language of the mind. Clarity, our brains love clarity. And when we have a clutter, whether it's emotional, physical, tangible, intangible, what have it, to-do lists, things, it weakens your clarity because your brain is always searching for what's the most important or how many lists can I remember. So letting go is a leadership decision, not an avoidance. It's like I talked about those outdated expectations. When I realized the expectations I held for myself that were unnecessary and I couldn't even achieve them, when I intentionally set them down, it gave my mind and my time so much more freedom. And so this is why it's important that we decide to not bring them with us. So letting them go is truly a leadership decision, not an avoidance. This is why it's taking time to do this is so important. We talked about how resolve can come in. And I think it was with setting the weather. It's the calm with the resolve that we have. Well, when you have clarity and when you sit down and you're like, okay, this is what I'm taking with me, this is what I'm not taking with me, you can build in that resolve and you can say, okay, and this is why, and this is what it means. So leaders don't enter a new season on overload. And if you try to carry everything with you, that's what's going to happen from the beginning. You're going to go in and taking already an emotional backpack that's so full, it doesn't have room for growth or what's coming. Because there's always things that show up that we didn't expect. And this third one, is one of the most important things that we can do. Resilient leaders clarify how they want to show up. This means we show up as an identity, not necessarily goals. Goals are important. However, who do you need to be in order to achieve the goals? And that's going to be a determining factor on whether you reach the goals or not, is who are you committing to be? We don't just plan outcomes. This is when we decide how you want to lead, how you want to lead under, or how you want to respond under pressure, and what kind of leadership presence do you want to carry? Identity drives behavior more than goals. I think the importance of being an aligned leader, it's because it's identity first. It's who are you as a leader? How do you want to show up? And what does it mean to have you as the leader? So because we know that presence shapes the culture. And if you are shaping the culture, the personal culture you hold, that also will spill out to the culture your team is going to carry, the culture your team is going to adopt. And so it's really important that you decide how you want to show up, how you want to lead, and how you want to respond under pressure. Again, Build that on a Tuesday. Decide every time when there's pressure, I'm going to take a 5-minute break just to clear my mind and think it through. That's what I mean by how do you want to just respond under pressure? Do you want to respond with the first reaction that comes? Or do you want to have a thought out, be like, okay, I know that when pressure is turned up, when a crisis happens, that before I say anything, I'm going to take 5 minutes to just reflect on what's going on. This isn't you're not avoiding it. You're not running from it. This is the moment that you decide that you're going to be the aligned, resilient leader through everything. So we know that presence shapes culture. This is why identity is so crucial. If you want to be an aligned leader, if you want to be a resilient leader, you need to understand who you are as a leader. And then the consistency matters more than intensity. This is why on a Tuesday, like how you want to respond under pressure, it changes the way you respond daily. One of the things I hate as, when the kids are really little, they'd be like, Mom, Mom, Mom. I'm like, what? And I didn't want to respond that way. And so I started, and I do not suggest this with your employees, with your team members, because it's wildly inappropriate for that setting. But it gives it a good example is I didn't want to respond with what every time. One is I don't think I don't need to explain it. I know most of my friends who are like, no, I like, yes, and I know some people who say yes. And I worked hard when they were really little that when they say, Mom, 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 I'm like, yes, love, because it's just kinder. And when I say it, it calms me down and remembers like, hey, you love these kids no matter how annoying they are or how many times a day they're like, Mom, Mom, Mom. And so how do you want to respond when things are going on? And so by building that habit, now, no matter what happens, that's how I respond to the kids when they call me, when they need something. And that to me, I get to show up as the mom who cares and not just be like the one who's put off because my kids have 5,000 questions a day. Now, again, I wouldn't call your people yes, love. However, what do you want to respond when they come to you with a problem? Rather than saying, okay, let me solve the problem for you, maybe you want to ask a question back before you give any advice. Maybe it's like, what should we do? And then maybe you should say in your mind, okay, anytime they ask me what I should do, I'm going to flip it on them and say, what do you think we should do? And give them that, like empower them in that moment. See how that shifts it? Like that's an identity piece that you can plan ahead. And consistency matters more than intensity. When crises come, the intensity rises quickly. But if we are building leadership on a Tuesday, we can build it consistently. And so these three things, we've talked about regulation, we've talked about compassion with standards, we've talked about an emotional climate, and now we're talking about steady leadership, how we show up matters. And so I wanted to challenge you. And if you look at the show notes, every week I have a challenge if you choose to accept it, and a journal question for you, because I do find that it's so important that we're intentional about putting these things into action. Otherwise, it's just information. And so as you step into the next season, I want to challenge you to set aside 10 quiet minutes and ask yourself these questions. Don't rush them and let them tell you the truth. Let the questions, as you are writing, don't judge them, don't rush them. And when you see them, hold them with soft hands and know that the more we can understand what's going on in our brains, the more we understand what's going on in our nervous system, the more we're able to change what we need to change. So the first question is, what am I still carrying that no longer belongs in the next season? This might be expectations, a role, pressure, or a pace that you've outgrown. Resilient leaders don't carry everything forward. They choose intentionally. So the next question is, how do I want to show up when the pressure rises again? Not what you want to accomplish, but who do you want to be? Do you want to be calm, resolved, clear, present? Your presence will set the tone long before your plans do. And then the third question is, what needs to be steadied before it can be strengthened? So Look for what's shaky, what's reactive, what's fragile right now. Resilience isn't built by adding more, but by stabilizing first, by going through the training and building those resilient muscles. So as you head into this new season, you don't need a perfect plan. You need clarity, intention, and a willingness to lead yourself first. So if you want support clarifying what you're carrying, what you're releasing, and how you want to lead this next season, book your leadership strategy call at tammymariecoaching.com/call, and we'll take a steady, grounded look at what's next. And because I want you to know that you can be the leader that you want to be. You have the skills, you have the talent, and you may have the knowledge. But let's get that resolve built in. Let's get that clarity built in, because a resilient leader isn't loud. A resilient leader is intentional, and resiliency is built long before the next season begins, before the next crisis, before the next challenge. A resilient leader begins today. All right, friends, I'm so thankful that you're here. I hope you have an amazing end of the year of 2025. I hope that 2026, I hope you commit to being more aligned, more clear, and more strategic about the way that you lead. And again, I'm here to support you in this. This is what I love to do. This is what I'm built to do. And this is what I get to do every day. So I just encourage you, have a wonderful New Year's. And if you're listening to this in 2026, it's not too late to ask yourself, what now? Well, who do I want to be? All right, friends, choose joy until joy chooses you. And I'll see you next year. Bye for now.